Special thanks to Legal Eagle for allowing this story to be shared. Check the description for their details. And now, on to the story. There was a great beast that stalked the lands. A wolf king who had continued to defeat the very best of each kingdom. The elves had sent their finest marksmen, but the beast moved too quickly to let his heart be pierced by any arrow, and soon hunted the hunters. The dwarves had sent their strongest warriors, but the wolf could snap their hammers with his powerful jaws and drive them back with his long reach. The fae had sent their sorcerers and mages, but the king of beasts had powerful magics of his own and turned their talents against them. Of all the civilized peoples, only the humans had not sent champions to try and defeat the creature. As the youngest of the races, they had no warriors stronger than dwarves, no marksmen better than elves, no magicians smarter than fae. Who then could even hope to challenge this creature? But among the humans was a gardener who was not a champion of anything. She did not wield a bow with great accuracy. She had no hammer or armor and did not know the power of magic. Instead, she tended to her garden in the woods, trying to live quietly. But the beast would not allow this, as he trampled her garden time and again through his fights with the champions of the other races and even his grand hunts across his woods. So one day, the gardener decided that she would stop his constant trampling of her peaceful garden in the woods. She waited for the next time the wolf approached her little cabin, intent on hunting deer and elk to fill his belly. When he was confronted with the gardener, she stood before him in her simple clothes and straw hat, rake in hand. "Wolf, I live simply in these woods, tending to my garden, and you trample my poor flowers time and again." The wolf was curious as to this defiant figure before him. He had bested the champions of each of the other realms, but not humans. The garden attracted the animals he hunted, so he had allowed her to stay in his woods, and now she seemed ungrateful for his kindness. "Little human, I am the king of beasts," the wolf exclaimed, towering above her. "I have felled the strongest dwarf, the fastest elf, and the smartest fae. You dare speak to me about your garden?" "I do, for it is mine. I tend to it and care for it, and you trample it without concern." Defiant still, the wolf was angry but curious. "And what shall you do about this?" he inquired. "I shall make you promise to leave my garden alone," she said, and to this the wolf howled with laughter for some time. "I am a king of beasts. I bow to no one. I rule over all I see. And I see a great deal, and you little gardener will make me promise to leave your garden alone? Why should I not eat you now?" he asked, and the gardener shrugged. "I am small and skinny. I would not make a good meal." The wolf nodded, as this was true. "Then why don't I simply leave you now? Can you catch me once I am on the hunt?" he asked, and she shook her head. "I am far slower than you, great wolf, and could not catch you on your hunt, but I will still be here. And I will confront you every time you come through and warn the beasts of these woods when you pass by that you are on the hunt." This annoyed the wolf now. "Why do I not simply kill you then and leave your garden to rot?" To his surprise, the human shrugged. "Then I will be dead and my garden will rot and the birds will sing of the gardener who scared the king of beasts." The wolf growled at that. "I am afraid of nothing," he exclaimed in a great roar, but the gardener did not flinch. "Then I shall challenge you, and in the end, you will promise not to trample my garden," she replied, and this made the wolf pause. He looked at the small figure before him in her simple clothes and straw hat. "And what weapon will you use?" he asked. "My rake," she replied, lifting the tool in her hand. The wolf laughed once more as he decided the human was simply mad. "Very well, human. I accept your challenge with your rake. How shall we fight?" he asked. "We will not fight, for that is not the challenge," she replied, and he got curious once more, tilting his head. "Then what is the challenge?" he asked, before she stepped forward, and he lifted a massive paw, as big as her body, ready to swat her away. But she moved slowly and raised up her rake. With it, she began to rub it against his chest, and the king of beasts slowly leaned into it. The gardener used her rake to scratch the mighty beast's chest as he lowered his paw and found himself wagging his tail. Before long, he had lowered his head so she might scratch behind his ears, and last he rolled onto his back so she could scratch his belly with the rake. But suddenly, she stopped. The wolf opened his eyes, rolling over to look at the human once more, Why did you stop? I demand you continue." He had never felt such a wonderful sensation before and was annoyed she had stopped. "Do you promise to stop trampling my garden?" she asked, and he got up then, angry as he realized what she was going. "I am the king of beasts. I swear to no one. I rule these forests as I see fit." But the gardener did not flinch. "Then I will not scratch you again with my rake," the wolf growled. "I will destroy your garden if you do not obey me," he howled. "Then I will replant it as I have done many times." She still did not back down. "I will destroy your cabin," he bellowed. "Then I will sleep beneath the stars as I rebuild it." She replied, calm as before. "I will destroy you." He growled, leaning in close, his massive teeth bigger than her head. "Then I will not be able to use my rake." Her simple reply made him stop. She stood there before him, defiant still, his threats doing nothing to persuade her. The wolf stood tall, then towering over the lowly gardener, as he thought of all the subjects of his kingdom. He thought of the fish in the rivers, the birds in the skies, the bears in the mountains, his kin in the woods, and even the squirrels in the trees. Not one could hold a rake. "This is your request?" he finally asked. "That I do not trample your garden?" "That is my request," she replied. Finally, the great beast muttered quietly, "I will not trample your garden." "You need to swear to it," the gardener insisted, and the beast growled for a moment before saying, "I, the great wolf, king of all beasts, swear to not trample your garden," he announced, and the gardener lifted her rake and began to scratch his chest once more. But this would not be the last deal struck between the beast and the gardener. One day, the Wolf King hunted near the garden, for he wished to enjoy being scratched by the gardener's rake soon after. But to his surprise, the gardener offered him a deal. "If you bring me meat from your hunt, I shall prepare it with herbs from my garden here and cook it for you." "You think I, the great Wolf King, need you to prepare my food for me? I have been hunting alone here for centuries. What do you have to offer to one so successful at hunting as me?" he asked, more amused than upset. "You are a hunter, but only that. I am a gardener. You have not had the taste of meat finely seasoned and prepared for you, but instead eat simply to survive. Surely you desire more from this." The great wolf thought this over and accepted her deal. He could spare some meat to sate his curiosity. But once the great Wolf King had tasted the meat prepared by the gardener, it was no mere curiosity, but a craving growing larger with each new recipe she fed him. He began to detest eating his hunts, unless she had time to season and cook the meat for him. His hunts now centering around her garden, so he could bring back his catch easily. As he got more content with this, she set to make another deal with him. "O great Wolf King," she said, even as she brought him another serving of his favorite seared venison. "You are so powerful, strong, and intelligent. I ask why it is you kill the champions of the other races who come to your forest." "They seek to kill me," he growled in response. "Should I not seek revenge for this act? To make it clear, I am the great Wolf King and not to be trifled with." "But you are so quick and mighty. Could you not simply defeat them and send them home alive, to bear the shame of their defeat before their kin? Would this not make your forest safer, as they see you are not a threat, but simply wish to be left alone?" As she asked this, the Wolf King considered it and slowly shook his head. "It is the ancient laws of the forest. I am the great Wolf King. They seek my heart, and instead I shall have theirs." He nodded at that then, but she waved her hand at his meal before him. "Are you not satisfied with the meals I prepare for you? Does the heart of a champion taste better than this seasoned venison, or the grilled river salmon? Should I stop making these meals for you so you have room in your belly for the hearts of champions who offer you no real challenge, but you seek to destroy anyway?" The wolf growled as she suggested this, realizing she wanted to make another deal. But as he considered it, he thought perhaps it was not a terrible deal for him. "You will continue to make these meals for me if I stop killing the champions? You'd seek to keep me full and content, so I see no reason to snack upon their flesh?" With that, she nodded. "Of course, O great Wolf King, it would be my duty to make sure you have your fill of your favorite treats in exchange for your mercy you show to them." The Wolf King nodded then and leaned down to feast upon the venison she'd prepared for him. "So be it." I, the great wolf king, shall show the champions of other lands mercy, so long as you keep my well fed." With that, the deal was struck. The wolf no longer killed the champions who came for his pelt, but instead drove them off as less and less came. As those who survived could now tell their kin he was too mighty to defeat, but content to stay in his forest. As the year wore on, the gardener was able to take the extra meat he brought and trade it with the woodcutters who had begun to move into the forest, hearing of the safety it brought thanks to the great wolf king. Her small hut became a cabin with a large roof to let the great wolf king in so he may sleep before the great fire she kept inside. As fall turned to winter, he was more comfortable than in any winter past. The gardener had preserved some of his food to last through the cold, and sleeping next to a fire was far better than his old cave, which was bitterly cold in these snowy months. But before he could grow truly complacent, the gardener came to him on the day of the first snow. "O great wolf king, is it not true that your kin must sleep in caves huddled together for warmth against the snow outside? Why do you let your people live like this?" The wolf king growled in anger at her words. "What do you mean, little gardener? Why should they live any other way? They are my subjects. They may be cold, but they are proud and they are free. My kin have moved into this forest, the woodcutters and mushroom pickers and potion makers. They have built cabins, though not as large as this. They offer fires and a warm hearth. Would you not let your people take shelter with my kin as you have done? Would you deny them this?" The wolf growled at her in return. "You asked me to give my kin to yours? They're free now. Why should they trade that away for a warm hearth?" he asked. "They may still be free. If you let your kin stay with mine, they can help them hunt, for hunting is hard in these cold months, and not all my kin have a mighty wolf king to bring them game as I do. Is this not a fair trade to your people? Hunting together in exchange for a roof over their heads and a fire to lay beside? Could not the potion makers aid your kin as well, sharing between our peoples what each offers in exchange for the other?" The wolf king considered this, glancing at the large fire beside him that had made the first night of snow one of comfort and warmth, instead of cold and shivering. "Very well, my kin shall stay with yours for this winter, but they are still free. They will simply trade hunting for warmth. But do not think us tame," he warned. "Of course, great wolf king. I shall swear that my kin will treat yours with respect and kindness if they swear to do the same to us." The wolf considered this and finally nodded. "Then I, the great wolf king, shall wear my kin, will treat your kin with respect and kindness as well." With that, the wolves of the forest were free to stay in the cabins of the woodcutters and potion makers and mushroom pickers so they may shelter out the stormy, snowy months in warmth and comfort instead of their old, cold, damp caves. However, when the spring came and the snows began to melt, the birds came out and began to sing of the once great wolf king, now merely a pet to a simple gardener. This sent the wolf into a rage, and he ran to the cabin of the gardener, where she was tending to her flowers. He towered over her, growling in anger as she turned to face him. "The birds sing of the news gardener. They sing to the world that I am not a king of beasts but your pet. They seek to mock me, all because of you. Tell me why I should not kill you now and reclaim my title." The gardener smiled up at the great wolf then and stood up. "Because they are wrong," she said simply, and the wolf blinked. His growling ceased. "I asked you to swear these things because I could not make you through force. You are too strong and mighty. But in sparing my garden, I could grow you the herbs for potions and the spices for the meat you eat. In sparing the champions who seek to kill you, you show mercy. In allowing your kin to seek shelter from the cold in the cabins of my kin, you show wisdom. And most importantly, in keeping your promises, you show that you are my friend." The wolf blinked once more as the gardener reached up, using her hands instead of her rake as she stood on her toes to scratch at his chin. Her hands were small and gentle, but he leaned into them as she kept scratching. "You see, these promises do not make you any less of a king, nor do they make you my pet. The other races do not understand that this simply makes us friends and paves the way for our kin to be allies forevermore, and for you to be the greatest king of them all." This sounded good to the king of beasts, But he needed to know something before he decided. "Why did you not fear me when first you challenged me?" he finally asked. "I was not afraid," she said simply. "This I know, but why?" he asked, more curious than ever. "Because I knew you would win any fight you entered, so I did not try and fight you." "But you challenged me," he mentioned, and the gardener laughed. "I never said what the challenge was, my dear friend. To me, the challenge was to see if you could resist becoming my friend." The wolf sat down then, letting the gardener more easily scratch his chin with her hands, and then up along his face, rubbing along his head as he closed his eyes. He thought of her words, of his kin and her kin allies forevermore. He thought of the food he ate since meeting the gardener, more flavorful and rich than any he'd had before. He thought of the potions she made for him that soothed his stomach and aided him when he was sick, such things he'd never had before. He thought of the fire in the winter that kept him warm from the cold and how peacefully he slept by her side. He thought of his kin. How many more had survived that winter in the cabins of her kin? How many were cured of their illnesses by the potions the humans made? How many of them found new purpose working alongside the gardener's kin? Yes, he would allow this to happen, and he would be the greatest king of them all, for he had made allies with the humans forevermore.